Okay, on the weekend I had the chance to play yet another installment of our ongoing all-for-one Regime Diabolique campaign. This one also run by Francois, 2 in a row for him. Did a solo session for me, which is recapped elsewhere in exhaustive detail. And then this time was his first full session since the first way through. So, this session, where Ivan and I take our characters and with occasional appearances from our lackeys, was a real evolution of everything which has come before. As a recap, what happened was it started up right after the unfortunate death of Margot, who was the feature of my solo session, and it opens 3 days later with her funeral. And the investigation around Martin has died down, and he has been basically exonerated, not considered guilty of the events. But the rumor mill has been grinding, and some people think that Margot herself killed her husband and then killed herself, burned the house down, that sort of thing. But Martin knows the truth, and he's revealed this to his friends, that members of his vengeful family, some of whom are vying with him for control and the ultimate direction of this family, they are responsible. And so everyone should be on their guard. Well, things hesitate a little bit at first. We're at a funeral, or we're in public, and then we begin to notice things. We leave the funeral and we have to report immediately to musket training in the rain. It's the end of the year. The weather's growing terrible. The Spanish army is still within 80 miles of Paris. The strain is incredible, and the musketeers are out training every day, except they're running out of powder. And the other thing they've run out of is Alphonse. Briscourt, our cheerful companion, is missing, and he's not supposed to be. So we begin our investigation, and through the help of Martin, my character's lackey's investigative talents, we discover that he's been tossed into the Bastille. Sound familiar? So maybe next time it'll be Phillipe in the Bastille. But he's in there. We don't know why at first. We keep digging. We discover that he had climbed through a window without clothing, and subsequently had been arrested and tossed into the Bastille. But it's a pretty severe punishment for that kind of crime. It could be worse. They could have taken him up and flogged him or something, but it's very specific sort of punishment. And when we were conducting our investigations in the King's Palace, it was also discovered that nobody had known that he was a musketeer. So someone was trying to protect the reputation of the musketeers, but still punish him. So that was very interesting, and it left us wondering, I think, as players a little bit, but also as characters, like, do we go to these great lengths to break him out of the Bastille that we went to with Martin before? So to alleviate some of that tension, we go and talk to our commander. We talk to the captain of the Musketeers. We talk to Monsieur de Treville, and he basically tells us in pretty clear terms that he'd like Alphonse to cool off in the Bastille for a while, and he'll get him out. And so, okay, we're fine with that. I feel guilty. The other three put their lives on the line for me, for Martin, and we're hesitating. we're not even going to visit him, and he probably had some clues that were important to us. We discovered in his clothing that he was carrying these coins. And these coins are important because they're of Hungarian manufacture. And Martin had stumbled across a whole bag full of them at the end of his solo session. And the recognition is there. They're funding something, or they're very well supplied. They're going to do something. What is it? So in this session, I was expecting that to come out, and well, come out it did. But Alphonse had some of these in his clothing. His clothing was, of course, returned without him because he was arrested without it. And what does it mean? Where did he get them? What are they for? So we could have gone to the Bastille to talk to him, but we circumvented that and we went to the places where he might have gone. So we go to, of course, our now famous Coq Sans Tête, and a rundown bar full of scum and villainy, and we began to investigate there. And it didn't take us very long, once we were there, to get the right kind of evidence to confirm our suspicions. But where do these suspicions come from? Well, as we're still kind of wondering what we should do, we're on our way home for the evening, and the rain is coming down. It's been a miserable day. It's been a miserable series of days. We're all depressed, and we are attacked. These thugs set up an ambush, and they lure us in it. We cheerfully throw ourselves into this ambush, and we make pretty quick work of them. Ivan was fantastic in this scene, how he raised the bar for swashbuckling action. It's a scene to pay particular attention to, and it's one of our most complicated combats yet, really. We had multiple types of opponents. We're fighting in a narrow alleyway. The alleyway is blocked by a cart. Ivan has his character Phillipe free the horses, and then he mounts one of them and uses it to jump over the cart into the alley to scatter the ruffians. Meanwhile, Martin is dueling with their leader and a couple of others, pretty much well magically enhanced. And so it was a real demonstration of what it's possible to do with the particular magical arts that he has. And so it was a pretty thrilling scene. And then we managed to capture one alive, but he's going to die soon. So how do we get information out of this guy? And this is where we once again miss Briscoe terribly, because he's the social character. I mean, the rest of us are either untaught and naive, or really bitter and focused inward. So between Phillipe, who doesn't know what to say, and Martin, who can't really stir himself to say it, or doesn't know how to say it without the full weight of his noble rank behind him, we're at a loss. And all of these turns we keep running into wanting to do things socially and not knowing how, or not being able to carry it off in a convincing manner. So from this captive, who then becomes a corpse, we gain a certain number of facts, and then those facts gradually turn into a theory. And then when we get back to the Coq Sans Tête, as I mentioned earlier, that theory becomes certainty, and we again report to Monsieur Treville. We explain what it is that we want to do. We get a leave of absence, and we head out to where we think all the trouble is. And what is the trouble? Well, the session itself was called Black Powder Stains. We didn't know that till after, but the focus of the story was on a false scarcity of gunpowder. Someone was buying up all the gunpowder, having bribed its manufacturer, and they were stockpiling it somewhere. Now, there was an incident of someone using it as a bomb to try and blow up Briscoe's house. That was interesting. And Phillipe dealt with him, and there was a very funny scene where it was finally revealed that Briscoe's lackey, Eugene, is not a man. This is an open secret for people who watch the game, but the characters don't know. And so that was very entertaining. So we know about the gunpowder. We don't have any backup. We don't have any allies. Jean-Marie gone. Alphonse in the Bastille. It's just the two of us. And we chose to ride into the teeth of danger, and we embraced that musketeer spirit, and we carried the fight to the enemy, and we fought, and we endured musket fire, and we endured clashes of blades, and we acquitted ourselves wonderfully, but eventually fate turned her hand against us, and we were captured. And luckily for us, our captors needed to have us be in a particular place at a particular time, partly as witnesses, partly to secure their power, because it turned out that the people that were behind all of this, of course, were all those in league with the Martel family, the family that Martin wants to regain and change completely from a family focused on evil and self-aggrandizement to a family fit to be nobility. So they monologue, and it's beautiful and reveals a whole new layer of machinations going on in the background that the next game master will be able to work with or work around, which is pretty exciting, because then I'll get to go and we'll see what happens next. But Ivan is up next, and he has so much now to work with. All these mysterious characters, some mentioned only in passing, some who were like visible only in a scene, that sort of thing. We're all brought together, and they're all watching us, and we're all tied up, and there's nothing that can be done. And we realize pretty quickly that the basement here is full of gunpowder, that its huge and famous stocks of wine have been transported to where the gunpowder is supposed to be, and the gunpowder's here, and its only purpose of being here is to blow us all sky high. So we need to escape. Somehow we need to escape. And one particularly important point for me is that the character of Emile, who is around Martin's age, the right kind of interesting rival, nowhere near as scary as this new rival, this Dorosia, that Francois has introduced. He and I could become allies of convenience against her. We could agree for a period of time to disagree. And so, as all this is coming to a head, Martin does his best to save Emile. And then they escape in the confusion. He and Phillipe escape in the confusion, and they meet up with Claude, who is prepared, and we get a cart back to Paris to lick our wounds and prepare for the storm that's coming. This is a pretty exciting episode. It's really long, just under 4 hours, and it was a lot of fun. Now, on to reflections. I found this a really important session for me. It's a long session to play, meaning I got to do a lot of things, or be called on to do a lot of things with Martin. And the way that he's been developed with tiny expenditures of experience points on little used skills has now given him a very broad base. There's often something he can at least attempt in a scene, and he has enough ability in these slightly developed skills that he can contribute help to others who might have that skill in higher degree. So there's opportunity where his knowledge of warfare was useful, where philosophy was useful, where larceny and lockpicking was useful, and this sort of thing. So that was very, very satisfying to see all these different intentionally developed, but I expected them to be underused aspects of the character to actually matter. And then to be able to, through the use of his very, very costly and dangerous magical skills, be able to fight side by side with Phillipe without either one of us really having to worry about danger too much, to also be quite exciting. But when the muskets came out, there was a huge difference. When the muskets came out, Phillipe was hit, wounded, blown out of his horse, knocked unconscious, and was in great risk for the rest of the scenario. Fortunately for him, we got captured. And also fortunately for him, that Martin had the opportunity to at least stabilize his wound and stop his bleeding. Because in Ubiquity with lethal wounds, if you are wounded below 0, then the clock is ticking. Your character is dying at this point, and something has to be done. So Phillipe was tough enough to have survived that injury on his own. He made his stabilization roll, but Martin was there to stabilize him, so it never became a question. What was hard for Phillipe, of course, was that we had exhausted our style points, and he had no ability to lessen his wound or to discover his wound wasn't as bad as he initially thought, that sort of thing. And so he was stuck being that injured throughout the rest of the situation, only having one of his 3 possible action types available to him and unable to exert himself in any meaningful way. So we had to escape. We couldn't try and go for the impossible and try and take them all out, which gave the ending this bittersweet taste that really has me itching to play again. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Ivan brings to the table the next time. See what extends from the session and see what's happening around the session, because we're not tied to a linear story. So here ends my recap and reflections of Black Powder Stains, a all-for-one Regime Diabolique session run for us by Francois in our ongoing experiment to run the game collaboratively as 3, used to be 4, game masters. Thanks for watching.